Я попрошу выйти на сцену Джимми Нгуена, это CEO компании InChain Group, и он расскажет, как Bitcoin Cash создает будущее для bCommerce. Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Jimmy Nguyen. I'm CEO of the InChain Group, and I'm going to talk to you today in English because I don't speak Russian. But I'm going to do my best to help educate you on why we at InChain believe that Bitcoin Cash is the key to achieve a bCommerce new world. So I've been dreaming about new world since I was a young professional. I got out of law school. I was a lawyer for 21 years before doing what I'm doing now. And I got out of law school during the 1990s when the internet was the new emerging technology. And at the time, everyone was so excited, and I wanted to go there and dream of this new world. And the biggest thing I remember hearing about was the concept of e-commerce at the time. If you remember in the 1990s, this was radical. The idea that you could go shopping and buy things on the internet. It seemed so remarkable. Although my Vietnamese immigrant parents probably were never going to pay for things, with a credit card on the internet. I thought that was the future. And today we have a global payment system that's robust all around the world of e-commerce. But we're on the brink of something new, something that we at InChain call bCommerce, which is Bitcoin commerce. What is that? It's a commercial world that is powered by the Bitcoin network, where payments are fast, they're instantly confirmed, and transaction fees are very, very low. We believe this new world is coming and that it's going to be powered by Bitcoin Cash, and more importantly, that it's going to be a bCommerce world for everyone. No matter what industry companies are in, whether they're in technology or payment service providers or merchants and retailers or cars or media and entertainment companies or even the banks themselves. And it's for people in all countries, whether you're in the developing countries and we need to bank the unbanked populations or even in the most westernized countries of all. So for the next few minutes, I want to spend my time telling you why this world is going to change commerce and why it's going to be caused by Bitcoin Cash in particular. InChain Group is the company I lead. It's a group of global organizations that's best known for our chief scientist, who is Dr. Craig Wright, one of the earliest minds behind Bitcoin. And what we are doing as a mission is using all of our research and innovation, our technology, and our investments, because we are investing in new companies around the world, to power a world driven by Bitcoin Cash as the ecosystem for the future. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing as I go through my presentation. But it all begins with this basic concept. To achieve the bCommerce world, we need a massively scaled Bitcoin network. And that network, we believe, must happen on Bitcoin Cash. To understand that, let's start at the original Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. Who's read the actual white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto? People talk about it, but not that many people have read it. If you go back and look at the original paper, and this is a screenshot of the title is very important. Bitcoin was envisioned to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Cash, meaning that it needed to be fast, easy to use, and cheap in terms of fees. And that is critical to the vision of Bitcoin that we support. But it's not what has happened with the chain as Bitcoin has emerged. As we all know, Bitcoin is based on a blockchain where the block size got capped at some point to 1 megabyte in size, which is not very large. And it's caused a philosophical debate about how to scale the Bitcoin network. And that creates this practical impact, which is at 1 megabyte, which is very small. That's about the size of a JPEG file. If I were to take a picture of all of you and send it by text message, it only fits about 7,000 transactions. At that throughput capacity, the current Bitcoin network will only average about 3 transactions a second, and at maximum 7 transactions a second. Compare that to the global Visa network, which on its average day averages 2,000 transactions a second, and on the busiest days of the year, such as holiday shopping, 56,000 transactions a second. So you can understand why the Bitcoin network today, with a 1 megabyte block, will never create the data capacity to rival a Visa or MasterCard global payment system. So where does that leave us? It created over the last few years, if you've been a Bitcoin follower, a philosophical debate between two different camps in the Bitcoin community. There were some people who I call the small blockers. They wanted to keep the block small. And their view is that you should treat the Bitcoin network as a settlement layer, where all of the faster payment transactions happen off of the chain or on a side chain solution, and you settle periodically to the Bitcoin network. And then on the other side, there are people like my company and many of the other biggest minds in Bitcoin around the world, which are what we call the big blockers. We believe in the Satoshi Nakamoto vision of the Bitcoin network as a single network that scales massively with big blocks. And that is what caused a disagreement in the Bitcoin community. And there's a practical impact to this agreement. This is a diagram of what is called the mempool. The mempool is the waiting block, the waiting period, the queue, where if a transaction cannot fit into a Bitcoin block, it has to wait somewhere until it can go into another block. So for example, if I send the young lady over there a Bitcoin transaction, and there's too many to fit into one block that's only a megabyte in size, it has to wait in this mempool. This is a diagram of the mempool over the last 5 years, from 2013 through 2017. The size of the bubbles indicates the size of the mempool. So as you can see, up till the end of last year, it was getting bigger, meaning more and more transactions were having to wait before they could get confirmed, to the point that it could take 2, 4, 6, or even 8 hours to confirm a transaction if I were to send it on the legacy Bitcoin network at the end of last year. And that will not power a fast peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It won't work that way. That also creates an impact on fees, because you have to pay the miners, the people who provide the computing power to power the Bitcoin network, a fee in order to send the transaction. This is the mining fees from last year, from February 2017 through January of this year. And as you can see, starting around November and December, and definitely in January, there was a huge spike in the transaction fees, to the point that it was costing at the end of last year $20 US, 40, 60 US just to send a transaction on the Bitcoin network. Well, what's the practical impact of this? If we want Bitcoin to be used as daily cash, you are not going to walk into a Starbucks coffee in the United States where you can pay for a fancy $5 mochaccino, whatever, if it costs you $20 US just to actually send the transaction. So Bitcoin was not being used as daily cash for this very reason. And that is what led to the chain split, the fork in August of last year, which caused Bitcoin Cash to emerge. The original chain kept going on, and I call that now the Bitcoin Core chain. It's controlled by the Bitcoin Core developers. And up here, the Bitcoin Cash chain forked off on its own. So if you actually held Bitcoin as of August 1st of last year, you automatically got new Bitcoin Cash coins. So what's the difference, and why do these two different chains matter? Here's the main difference: bigger blocks, and a vision and a commitment to massively scale the Bitcoin Cash network. The original Bitcoin Core chain is still stuck at 1, or there's some effort to create its blocks to be 2 megabytes. That's still very small. Bitcoin Cash was birthed last August with an 8 megabyte default block size. So it's significantly larger. That's still nowhere near fast enough to create a Visa or MasterCard payment system. But there's already a plan to go bigger. This May, on May 15th, the independent developer groups around the world that work on the Bitcoin Cash software implementations are planning a protocol upgrade to raise the block size on Bitcoin Cash to 32 megabytes in size. So it's significantly larger. And they're not going to stop there. There are already plans in place to continue increasing the block size progressively until we get to a massively scaled network. And what do I mean by massive and big? Well, we believe in the future where you can have 1 gigabyte size blocks. That is 1,000 megabytes every 10 minutes worth of transactions added to the network. And it's not just us that believes in it. Bitcoin Unlimited, which is one of the other major Bitcoin groups in the world, agrees with us. We have funded with them what's called a Gigablock Testnet Initiative, which is designed to test the security of these really big blocks, because we know we can't deploy them to the Bitcoin network unless people are comfortable that they'll be safe and secure with their transactions. So if we get to a network with 1 gigabyte size blocks, which is 1,000 megabytes, right now we're only at 8, we're talking 1,000, that would enable throughput capacity of 10,000 transactions a second and 864 million transactions a day. So that is faster than the average Visa or MasterCard processing day. That would be a very powerful network, and that's only possible on Bitcoin Cash. But I'm going to ask you to dream even bigger. What if on the Bitcoin Cash network there could be 1 terabyte size blocks? 1 terabyte would be 1,000,000 megabytes. That is monstrously massive. And we believe it could be viable. But it wasn't us at nChain that actually even birthed the idea of 1 terabyte size blocks. This man, Johannes Vermorel, who is the CEO of a company in France, in Paris, called LOCAD, which is in the quantitative supply chain management space, wrote this blog post last December predicting that 1 terabyte size blocks could be possible, but only on the Bitcoin Cash network because of its scaling vision. Here's the impact of that. He calculated, if you go back and read his blog post, that if you have 1 terabyte size blocks, remember these are added every 10 minutes, each block can contain 4 billion Bitcoin Cash transactions. That's 4 billion every 10 minutes, and provide capacity of 7 million transactions a second. If you assume a worldwide population of 10 billion people, that means a Bitcoin Cash network with terabyte-sized blocks could power a system of 50 transactions per human per day across the world. That means the Bitcoin Cash network is more than just a payment system, because most of us don't do 50 payment transactions a day. It means the network has the capacity to be a data network, to power things such as Internet of Things device communications and all of the other data entries and transactions we engage with every day. That is the vision we believe is possible for Bitcoin Cash, and why we believe it'll be so valuable, not just as a cryptocurrency we use for daily payments, but as an entire data network and system. So much so that we have partnered with LOCAD, the French company, as well as CoinGeek, which is a fast-growing cryptocurrency media site which supports Bitcoin Cash, to prepare for that day of terabyte-sized blocks. We are partnering on what's called the Terab project. What is that? It's designed to solve a technical problem that will happen if you get blocks that big. If you have blocks that big, another thing will get even bigger, which is what's called the unspent transaction database, the UTXO database. And why is that important? It's how the Bitcoin network works, so that if I'm sending someone in the audience a Bitcoin transaction, the nodes want to try to quickly determine whether I've double spent that already, if I already sent it to someone else. And that's all tracked in something called the unspent transaction database. So that's not the only thing that has to happen to get to a Bitcoin Cash world and a bCommerce world. There needs to be merchant adoption. Right now, most people are buying Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or any of the cryptocurrencies as an investment. They're hoping it's going to go up in value. And that's not going to be enough, because we believe for something to be really valuable, it needs to be used. And it needs to be used in daily life. And that means Bitcoin Cash is the solution, because it can be used as a payment system. So we have to begin with encouraging merchants to adopt Bitcoin Cash as a payment method and make it easier for them to do so. And here's why. We begin with education, which is it is just cheaper and better for merchants in order to accept Bitcoin Cash. Credit card payment fees are 2 to 3% per transaction plus a base fee. Bitcoin Cash, technically free to accept, except you might have to pay 1% to a solutions provider such as BitPay or Coinbase in order to make it easier. So if you add those numbers together, accepting Bitcoin can save merchants at least 1% in payment processing fees. This can be really significant. And merchants were actually accepting Bitcoin until last year. We saw a rapid decline because of the increasing fees. So JP Morgan even issued this report saying retailer acceptance of BTC is declining. And in December of last year, one of the major online gaming distributors, Steam, decided to drop it as a payment technique. This chart shows you the difference in the payment costs. The legacy Bitcoin network, this is on December 26, 2017, the day after Christmas last year. Average is in yellow, transaction fee of $44.67 in the US, and median of $23. But on Bitcoin Cash, you were well under 20 cents for those days. So that is the biggest difference between these two chains. We even calculated what it would be the impact on Amazon if it had accepted Bitcoin Cash on its busiest shopping days of the year after Thanksgiving weekend in the United States. On those 2 days, it processed 12.78 million online transactions. Those days, legacy Bitcoin averaged $6 as a fee, meaning they would have paid $76 million in payment processing fees. But if they accepted Bitcoin Cash, on those days, the fee was only 20 cents. Meaning it would have cost them only $2.5 million, a saving of over 90% in payment processing fees. And one day when wallets are reconfigured to accept Bitcoin Cash more efficiently, we believe that will go down to 2 cents, meaning that would have only cost Amazon $250,000 on those 2 days. So those are the advantages for merchants. And let me quickly mention that we're also working on security improvements to make wallets more secure. We have a project with the SBI Group, which is the major internet financial services conglomerate in Japan based out of Tokyo, to create a next generation secure wallet system to prevent the hacks that make people so afraid of cryptocurrency. And finally, we're working on better user interfaces because it needs to be easier for people to use Bitcoin on a daily basis. Wallets are not as friendly as they could be. Our investment entity called Ancient Reaction has invested in a South African company called Centbee. And it's because it's the most social, easiest to use, user-friendly Bitcoin Cash wallet that I have seen. It uses some basic technologies such as importing your contacts from your phone system, having geo-mappings to locate merchants in the area that actually accept Bitcoin Cash, and using certain social features and QR codes to make it easier to use your phone app to make a payment at a merchant like you would do, for example, with Apple Pay. So we've invested in them. We've also invested in Yours, Inc., which is a company in the United States in San Francisco, which has created a social media network that uses Bitcoin Cash for micropayments. So if you're a blogger or a content creator, you can get paid for posting your content. So here's a quick example before I begin wrapping up, which is someone posted this, which is trading strategies for Bitcoin. You can read this part for free. To get past, you get to a paywall where you click and the author sets the price. Here he said at $4.88. It's kind of high. Most of them are like 50 cents. And you pay with Bitcoin Cash. You can also pay such things as 10 cents or $1 to tip an author, to vote an article up. Payment amounts that are too small to use credit cards for, but with micropayments using Bitcoin Cash, you can do that. And Japan is leading the way with all of this, with merchant adoption, because in April of last year, it became the first country in the world to recognize Bitcoin as a legal tender. And that has meant more regulation, but more confidence in Bitcoin, to the point where major merchants such as Big Camera, Peach Airlines, and this budget hotel chain called Capsule Hotels, and hundreds of other merchants now in Japan are accepting Bitcoin. I was just in Tokyo last week for a major Bitcoin conference, and merchants all over the city are beginning to accept Bitcoin, even at its higher fees, and we think even more once Bitcoin Cash comes along. So those are all the reasons why we at nChain and so many others around the world believe that Bitcoin Cash is the key to providing a bCommerce world. It's an amazing opportunity for those of you who are looking to get into crypto more or invest in more, support companies with new technologies, to consider doing your work and making your investments on Bitcoin Cash. We believe in it. We believe it's the solution for this amazing bCommerce world that's really beautiful and that will take us all from what was e-commerce to bCommerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I suppose that there are a lot of questions that will be asked for you, okay? You ready?
Sure.
So I have a question regarding the Gigabyte testnet initiative. How fast do your Okay, so a question regarding Gigabyte testnet initiative. How fast do you think it could be implemented, like in real world, and how fast do you approach with your collaboration to this? idea?
The question was about the Gigablock testnet initiative that our company is doing with Bitcoin Unlimited and how fast blocks of that size could be implemented into the real world. I don't expect it's going to happen anytime soon. I think the community is rightfully concerned about making sure the network is secure before you introduce blocks of that size. The plan from our talks with the developer groups is after getting to 32 megabytes to consider some larger block sizes, but to set and create an algorithmic approach afterwards so the network dynamically grows based upon the volume of transactions. Because we believe even if we could go to 1 gigabyte today, we should not do it unless the volume of transactions warrants it. If I had to take a general prediction, I think we might see the introduction of gigabyte-sized blocks in the next 2 to 3 years. And I think the dream of a 1 terabyte size block is probably about 4 to 5 years away. That's just a general guess.
Такой вопрос, ну чисто технический вопрос, да? Если 32, you have no headphones, yeah?
No, someone's
Okay.
going to have to translate for me. Or you're going to hear some really bad Russian speaking from me.
If we will have 32 megabytes network, how many blockchain full nodes we will have in the world? The first question. The second question is, it is technical stream, so let's speak more technically. If Lightning Network will be provided in Bitcoin, normal Bitcoin, it will be the answer to all of these questions you mentioned in your presentation. So why, how do you think? Is Lightning Network the best opportunity or not? But I appreciate your vision and the diversity of visions about blockchains and Bitcoin's like development.
Yeah. So the first question was, if we reach a world of very massive blocks, how many full nodes will there be? I do think Bitcoin mining is going to consolidate down to larger players. There will still be some smaller miners out there. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the network is going to professionalize and corporatize to some extent. We also don't think that everyone needs to run a full node. So I think it's a misconception that you have to have a network where everyone needs the mining capacity to run a full node. A lot of companies are working on SPV wallets and other mechanisms where people run specialized nodes with less need for mining capacity. So I think there's room for both specialized and full nodes. Your second question is about why doesn't the Lightning Network, which is what the Bitcoin Core developers and Blockstream are proposing as the solution to speed up transactions on the Bitcoin network, why that isn't the solution? I am always a believer that more solutions and possibilities are fine. Personally, we at nChain don't believe that the Lightning Network is the answer. One, because of security concerns that have been raised about it. And two, because honestly, we think it's a weird solution. Basically, if I could sum up what the Lightning Network is, it's like buying a payment card. For it to work, I need to be online if I'm sending a payment to a retailer or merchant in order for the payment channel to be open and my transaction and funds to be sent. So we both have to be online at the same time. That doesn't always happen when you're trying to make a payment, let's say, to a merchant. And you also have to pre-fund the payment channel with your coins. So it would be like me going to a store and essentially buying a payment card in advance and paying, you know, X amount of currency in advance, depositing it, using some of it, and then taking back the rest that I don't use. And on top of that, I have to open a different payment channel for every merchant I want to pay. So it's a solution, but I think it's a weird solution. And if people want to use it, that's fine. I don't oppose its introduction. We don't think it's the key to creating a massively scaled Bitcoin network.
Thank you, Jimmy. I hope and I suppose that Jimmy will be more than happy to answer all of your questions regarding the Bitcoin Cash. So you can catch him whatever he wants.
Thank you.
Thank you.